Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University. Welcome to Outrider 51, Your Writing Life. The number one request I receive from thousands of students around the world is to talk about how to be a better academic writer. So we're going to do some sessions on that through this Outrider component between 50 and 60. And I wanted to start with a whole of life response. So I wanted to talk about your writing life because writing emerges from a context. Writing emerges from an environment, a space and a time. And the trouble is, writing is very difficult. If you think about it, what writing requires is we have to create an idea first in our mind, but then we create it a second time when we write it down. So writing is a very unnatural act, and therefore we have to enact interventions in our life to make writing work. If you think it's just going to be okay and writing will fit in with your normal life, you would be wrong. Everything we're doing today comes from a singular premise, that our writing environment is crucial to our writing. Now, that's why I've intentionally used the phrase, a writing life. If you want to write, let alone if you want to do research, you have to reorganize your entire life to do so. So what I wanted to do is create some very, very quick strategies for you, 20 of them, 20 interventions in your life that you can commence today. They may increase your efficiency, they may increase your productivity, or most importantly, they just might get you out of that rut or out of that lack of confidence. If you think you're a bad writer, bad writing, if you think you're a bad writer, we're going to do 20 interventions to make you a better writer today. Now, these 20 ideas will provide a reorganization of your entire life. And what we need to do is look at the surfaces of your life, we're looking at the time and the spaces of your life. Now, Annie Dillard stated quite honestly and quite fabulously, quote, "The written word is weak. Most people prefer life to it." End of quote. So let's try and connect up the word with your life and create a writing life. Intervention 1, have a plan. Most of you know I run my entire life, my writing life, through a whiteboard. Every year on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, I configure a whiteboard of my research plan for the following year. And it has 3 sections to it. What I'm going to write, under review, and what's been published. And the goal of the whiteboard is that I have productivity because my writing cascades down the board. And so it means I plan what I'm going to do and I can see the achievements. So the goal is for everything on the board to cascade, yes, but so I can see it cascade and gain confidence and a great sense of the value of my work. The gift of this system, though, that I rarely talk about is when you're really busy, which of course all of us are all of the time, it means it reduces the time it takes for you to think about what to do next. So when I finish an article on a Thursday and send it out to a journal, on the Friday morning, I know exactly what I'm starting the next day. There's no thought involved, it's all there. So the great gift of planning a writing life like this is it reduces the decision making and the procrastination because you know what you're writing on and you know what you're writing on next and you see the movement, you see the productivity. 2, intervention 2, pick your priority. Okay, this is an important one. Once you've got the whiteboard rocking, the next emphasis is to work out what your actual priority is. So where do you start? And there are 5 different strategies in the literature to pick out what is a priority, what's important. Now, I've talked about what's an important project, but of course the literature defines importance, what is important to you, in many, many different ways. Obviously, the first way to think about what's important is you look at it and you go, well, look, that's important. It's just self-evident. Well, you know what, do that one. But the next step, which, to be frank, I used when I'm picking my priorities, is what is the closest project to completion. So I look at everything there. What have I done most of the reading for? What maybe have I sketched some ideas out on of all of the whiteboard? What is the closest to completion? And that is the one I do. Another strategy, which I particularly recommend for students, particularly in their first year of their PhD, is pick the easiest project, and then you're learning how to be successful. So what's the easiest one for you to do? Do it, start it, finish it, complete it. You've learned how to pick and select a task. Great. Another strategy to work out what's important or a priority is pick out your oldest project. So what's been hanging around the whiteboard for some years? Well, how about we clean that one up now? So finally, I think a good one if you're really having trouble, and you know, I'm dealing with a lot of students at the moment that are deep in procrastination. They just are not writing at all. And so my strategy with them is, how about you write something that brings you joy? How about you write something that you enjoy writing, and that might solve your problems. So we all know, colleagues, writing is not pleasant. Research is not pleasant. This is not a nice thing to do. There are always fantastic things we could be doing. We could be walking along the beach. We could be playing with a wonderful dog. We could be spending time with our family and friends. There are so many wonderful things we could be doing. And that's why writing is difficult, because it requires an intervention in our lives. We have to move away from things that make us happy. So try and automate as much as possible, select a priority, and ensure that the document is up on your computer when you wake up in the morning. So when you wake up in the morning, you've planned what you're doing the night before, you wake up in the morning, you make yourself a cup of coffee, you lift up your computer lid, and you start working. Intervention 3. Your table or your desk doesn't matter too much, but it's got to be reasonably simple and clean. Now, I know there are all sorts of students, and indeed very senior academics, that are slightly obsessed about their desks and stationery, so they don't commence until they've got 10 HB pencils sharp. You know, those sort of people, bless you. But look, most of my life I've worked on a IKEA flat pack table, a 40 quid IKEA table, and a really cheap chair. At the moment, I'm working in very temporary, very dodgy accommodation, and I'm simply writing. My writing life is on a dining room table. Productivity, though, emerges from an environment. So make yours simple, clean, a powerful space if you can. Stephen King used a great line. He stated that there is one characteristic of successful writers, quote, a door that you're willing to shut. End of quote. So keep the space simple and as clear and as clean as you can, and find a way to isolate yourself from others. That's what a writer does. Intervention 4. This is a nice one. It will help you if you're in real trouble at the moment. Every week, assemble 7 tiny tasks that you can complete in 30 minutes or in 60 minutes. Sunday night, configure 7 tasks. 7 things that can be done quickly. Why this matters is that you're going to do 1 a day. At the start of every day, you are going to do 1 of these small tasks. And by giving yourself these 7 straightforward and clear tasks every single week that you start, that you finish, you gain a great sense of achievement. And you get into the habit of configuring micro successes. And the trouble is, you need these 7 goals, because if you don't name a goal, you can't achieve a goal. Therefore, when you've got these 7 straightforward tasks, no matter how busy you are during the week's not going to pass and you're sort of crying on Saturday morning going, I had so much to do and nothing got done. If you've got these 7 tasks, and I do this is what I do, 7 tasks, no matter how crazy the week is, you can say, you know what, it was an absolutely devastating week, but I had 7 tasks and I completed them. And that, in busy times, is a great achievement. Intervention 5, take breaks. Now, I know this one seems highly counterintuitive, but it's been shown in the research that scheduling regular breaks increases your efficiency. I think we all know the people who say they're workaholics and they're working all the time. And of course, they're not working all the time. They're online, they're on Insta, and they're buying shoes. We all know that. And that's why working in intervals is a very successful strategy. So, for example, you might decide to work for 30 minutes and have 5 minutes off, and then you've earned your time on Instagram, you've earned your time shoe shopping, that's great. I work on a 50-10 model. So I work with incredible intensity for 50 minutes, and then I take a 10-minute inverted commas break. What I do with that break is often really glamorous stuff like cleaning the sink, doing the washing, doing ironing. But can I say that's also quite efficient because it's allowing me to go out and do something physical and come back, sit down with efficiency. So that works as a strategy. Do a 30 5-minute break, a 50 10-minute break. And what you need to do is work on your intensity of work. Intervention 6. Oh yeah, think about the people with whom you spend time. This is such an important issue for PhD students because it really does frame what you do. Think about who you're talking with every single day. When you're talking with them, do you feel energized? Do you feel excited? Do you feel smarter? Or is it just sort of a complaint, yucky, gossipy zone? And really be clear on that. What's the environment in which you're socializing? The problem with a group of people that are doing this a lot is you're sucked into their negativity, into their fear, and that becomes quite paralyzing in a group. Can I say some of the most toxic PhD student cultures I've ever seen are this, and none of the students finish. That's why this is so important. So if you're in a pretty serious environment where there's a lot of negativity, and I understand this because my working days involve hearing people's complaints. That's what the job is. So I've got a student coming in, complaining about all these things that are going wrong in their lives, or the supervisor, all the things that's going wrong with the student. They're all blaming each other. And of course, when in doubt, a student will blame the dean. So it's obviously I'm responsible for their enrolment for 8.5 years. You know, I'm causing their problems. Okay. But that's a complaint culture. And of course, complaints don't create success. Full stop. But what do I do about that? Well, what I do about that is every morning I get up early and I'm productive. I do my own writing first. I pay myself first. I fill the well first. So I'm then positive. I've read the greatest thinkers on planet Earth. I've written important thoughts, and then I come into work, whatever complaints and stuff people are doing, that's great because I've started my day working with the greatest scholars in the world. And that, of course, creates the positivity for the rest of the day. We need to remember that writing is an act of confidence, and if you're spending time before or after you're writing with toxic or pretty unhappy people, then you're going to have to do an intervention because that will impact on your writing. Intervention 7, consider your relationship with sound. This is a lovely one. The research shows that people who write with music are productive, that's great, and people who write in silence is productive. It's a productive environment. So whatever's suiting you, music or silence, the research shows that creates a great way to write. But the actual point I'm trying to make today is we've talked a lot about the environment of writing. We need to also remember the importance of constructing a soundscape of writing. So be intentional with the sounds around you. You need to construct a soundscape for your work. Also remember that you do have to construct silence. We're in an industrial, post-industrial age. You hear all the sounds, even when I'm recording this video. So when we need to, if we're interested in silence, if we want to write in silence, we have to construct that environment for silence. You can't just assume it's going to be okay. So intervention 8, oh yes, say no a lot. The only way to write a lot, the only way to be productive is to say no, and say no a hell of a lot. Every time you say no to something, you say yes to writing. Obviously, we all have to earn a living. We all have to care for families. None of us are raised by wolves. I understand that. But every single day, team, we make choices. And we say yes to completely random and pointless stuff that we should not be doing. Every day, every single day, every single hour of every day, somebody asks me to do something completely bonkers. And they're asking me to do something completely bonkers because they're not prepared to do it. So say no a lot. When you say no a lot, the rest of your life becomes incredibly productive. In fact, my rule is now so extreme these days that unless my answer is hell yes, it's a no. Intervention 9, address your dependencies. Are you dependent on something or someone? That creates intense powerlessness. Booze is the obvious one, but dependency on pretty toxic humans is also quite devastating. And I'm talking about those humans that say you're not important, you're marginal, you're rubbish, you can't do this, you're going to fail. Those people. Now, you need to address that dependency. Unless you do, you're just not going to be able to write. The easiest way to manage dependency is to replace it with something positive. So take the booze out, put the exercise in, golden. But I'm well aware that there are many dependencies that require the intervention of a health professional, and I beg of you, please do that. Because that dependency is not going to go away unless you make a decision for it to go away. And all your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations are gone if you've got a hangover or you're in a toxic, bullying environment. It is important that we talk about this, particularly the relationship between writing and alcohol, because I think particularly in the last 100 years, particularly since the Beats, to be frank, the relationship between writing and alcohol has been sort of romanticised. If you think about Charles Bukowski is the greatest example of this. If you look at his book on writing, it's basically him drinking his way through it. And people say, oh, he was a great writer because of the booze. No, he was a great writer, and he was so great that even through the dreadful booze, he was still able to produce reasonable prose. Intervention 10, make sure you improve something every single day. My mother, who is in her 90s, says remarkable things most days. And when she was in her 80s, she said to me, life just goes on and on and on. Somewhat depressing. But she also said, perhaps more buoyantly, Tara, things could be worse. You could be dead. You wonder how goths are created. Well, I'd be looking at the mother. But those sort of mantras, I think, are useful because they really do focus your mind. And this focus is important because a PhD, all research to be frank, but a PhD has a relentlessness to it, right? It just goes sort of on and on and on. And it means we lose the sense of achievement. We get a bit blunted. We're not really sort of fresh and groovy and excited. So that's why I always make sure for my students there's something outside of the PhD, for my own life, a professional development thing outside of my research life. So every single day I'm learning something new. Oh, interesting. I can apply that. Fantastic. Every single day, try and learn something. And it's amazing what happens to your writing life when you enable newness to emerge every single day. So this small change creates an enormous writing advantage. So every day, make a decision to learn something new. And it could be something as simple as downloading an app that teaches you a new word every day. Brilliant. Do that. Intervention 11. Stop the Gothic self-talk. Now, I'm an old goth, but I know that the internal dialogue that students have going every single day is diabolical. So let's be clear. You're brilliant. You're good enough. You can do this. You will finish. Full stop. Every time you feel yourself going into those negative mantras, so I'm stupid, life's pointless, I'm never going to finish this PhD. Whenever you feel yourself doing that, you've got to intervene. Get those windscreen wipers going. You've got to intervene. You've got to change that soundtrack. Every time you feel the "I'm useless" coming, stop yourself. Stop in the middle of the sentence, intervene, and think differently. Now, what I want you to do is create a replacement strategy. So when you've got the negative self-talk coming, I want you to replace it with something. Like, I am brilliant, I am amazing, and of course my personal favourite, I am fabulous. I am fabulous. One of my favourite stories ever, and I'm very old and I've been a dean for a very, very long time. One of my favourite stories involving a PhD student was involving a wonderful engineer. He was 6'2", weighed about 14, 15 stone, engineer. And he'd been enrolled for 8.5 years in a PhD, which engineering PhDs are obviously very quick. This was madness, 8.5 years. And so I saw the gentleman in my office. We had a good strategy and we came up with a methodological, iterative strategy to make the thesis work, to start it again, working from the foundation of everything he'd already done. And unbelievably, 3 months later, he came into my office on the day he submitted. And I said, mate, that's unbelievable. You were enrolled for 8.5 years. What happened in the last 3 months so I can help other people? What was the change? And he said to me, he saw a video I did years and years ago on, saying I am fabulous every day. I forget what video it was, but, so every morning wake up and go, I am fabulous. So this 6'2" engineer used to wake up in the morning and before he used to shave, he used to go, I am fabulous. And he said by the third day, he was fabulous. He reconnected with the thesis. He did the work that we talked about. He finished in 3 months because he's fabulous. And I tell you why. I think it was Buddha who said, or is supposedly said, we are what we talk about. Intervention 12, you can't measure what does not exist. Boom. Now, I know all the stuff that actually matters in life, like love and liking people and friendship. You can't measure that. I know that. So let's just park that truth temporarily for a moment. If we're dealing with work and productivity, then it's got to be measurable, okay? If you can't measure it in terms of work, then it doesn't exist. So improve your productivity by logging what you are spending time on, okay? So here is the task. What time did you start? What time did you finish? How did it go? This process is great because firstly, it teaches you about productivity and success, but it also has a meta lesson. When do you work at your best? So you're logging and you're tracking your work, and this reflection really matters. So when I did this, wow, 30 years ago? 30 years ago. And that's when I realised I get more work done in the first hour of the day writing than I do in the rest of the day. So you know what, don't try and write at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Tara. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Do it at 2 a.m. in the morning and you're winning, right? So work out your patterns and that will increase your efficiency. Intervention 13, pick your rabbit. Pick your rabbit. No one can reach a goal if you can't name that goal. So naming a goal that is important to you is actually the first stage to being successful. The act of naming and writing down a goal means that you'll also get a sense of not only what are you trying to achieve, but what does success look like for you. Now, once you've named that goal with clarity, you've got a fighting chance to achieve it. If you can't name a goal, you'll never achieve it because you don't know what you're doing. Full stop. So this seems like a very simple tip, I know. But it's not because, life. It is tough these days to work out what success means. And I think about this a lot. And look, if we flick through Instagram, then what success looks like supposedly is being able to put on those magnetic eyelashes quickly. That's what I think success is. But at different moments of our lives, it is important we touch base and ask ourselves, what does success look like? And these definitions matter because they impact enormously on how we research, how we publish, but also how we write. And when I become sort of lost in magnetic lashland, I ask myself one question that always focuses me, and that is, what would I like people to say at my eulogy? I know, a very buoyant topic, but ask yourself, at the end of your life, what is the achievement that you would like people to say about you? That's an important question. Really, what do you want people to say? Yeah, he's a good bloke. What do you want people to say? But then you've got to ask yourself the really tough follow-up question, okay? That's what you want people to say to you, about you at the end of your life. Think about your day today. What are you doing today? Are you enacting behaviours that connect with that goal at the end of your life? What are you doing today to achieve that definition of success? Is there any connection at all? Now, if there's not, you really need to think about that. If there's no connection between your daily behaviour and the outcome you are attempting to achieve, then it is time for an intervention. If you want to be known as a great writer, a great researcher, and you're having a black Zambuca for breakfast, have a think about it. Then it's about realising the gulf between your behaviour and your goals. If you can do this, your life will change. Luckily, I learnt this lesson very early in my life. Both of my parents were country people, came from country Western Australia, pretty simple people, and, lived the rural life. And Kevin Brabazon, who's still alive, my 96-year-old father, always used to tell me when I was a child that if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either of them. So pick your rabbit. Intervention 14. Change your attitude to failure. Huge one. As most of you know, I'm doing a lot of work on failure at the moment. I'm finishing off a book, done a series of keynotes, a lot of chapters and stuff. So I'm doing a lot of work on failure. And failure as a methodology, as an ontology. But failure matters a great deal to writing, and we don't talk about this enough. It is a myth that writers are supposedly these special people born with these gifts to write. That's nonsense. Writing is a craft. But if successful writers do have one characteristic, it is as follows. They have a healthy relationship with failure. Great writers treat failure as a learning opportunity, a chance to get better. Failure becomes the foundation for improvement. And so if you're so frightened of criticism, and I know so many students that are basically paralysed by their fear of criticism, their fear of failure, then you're going to be too frightened to write. And you know what? You need to write. Just write. And know that every single word you write is moving you to productivity and success. I think it was Ray Bradbury, I hope he did say this, but Ray Bradbury supposedly said, quote, "You only fail when you stop writing," end of quote. You only fail when you stop writing. Intervention 15, have the courage to be different. Come on. If writing was easy, if a PhD was easy, everybody would be able to do it. And only 1% of the world's population holds a PhD. So you are doing something spectacular. You are doing something different. You are doing something defiant, and you've made a choice to be different from your family and your friends. So every single day, you need to remember that you're doing something that 99% of the population cannot do. You've made a decision to be different from your partner, your family, your friends. You've made that decision. You've made a decision not to fit in. You've made a decision to stretch. So claim that difference and relish in the power of being extraordinary. Intervention 16, huge one, schedule an appointment with your writing. The characteristic of contemporary universities is that they endlessly confuse the urgent and the important. So you therefore need to schedule writing in your day. Put it in that damn Microsoft calendar, right? And never break an appointment with yourself. You wouldn't break an appointment with your kids or your partner or your friends. Don't break an appointment with yourself. Why would you let yourself down? Make an appointment with your writing. 17, intervention 17, control what you can control through very simple habits. Let's be honest, life is terrible most of the time, it's changeable, it's filled with pain, angst, anger and confusion, full stop. So how do you create order from this disorder? And the answer is habits. Really, really simple habits. So schedule a time. Pick a task, complete a task, full stop. And you know what? After this is done, say, Tara, that was bloody excellent. So enjoy that success. Speak the words. Well done, Tara. Yes, come on. If you're waiting for the perfect time to complete a PhD or to complete research, hell is going to freeze over. Do it now and simply control what you can control. Woody Allen, who I don't cite very often for obvious reasons, used the argument that 70% of success in life involves showing up. Interesting. 70% of success in life is just showing up. I would argue the other 30% is simply controlling what you can control. Always remember how much you do actually have control over. Okay? Intervention 18. Understand how writing develops through a degree. Anne Ruggles-Gear published a really fine book, Developing Writers in Higher Education, a Longitudinal Study. Anne and her co-researchers did a great favour for us. They implemented a study in how writing changes through a degree and what works and what doesn't when improving student writing. Wow. And this was a multi-year study. 169 students were tracked. Wow. So Gear took on the assumption that it is inevitable that writing improves through a degree. She shows that it's not inevitable. Students can start pretty poorly and not be great writers, and they finish pretty poor writers unless there are interventions. So she unpicks that phrase that we all take for granted, writing development. And she made it into 3 separate parts. Firstly, spelling and punctuation, so the error count. 2, disciplinary expertise development. And 3, the capacity to move in and move through writing challenges. I think that's absolutely brilliant. That is what writing development is. Fantastic. And the researchers recommended a very strong focus on genre, on students understanding writing genre. You've heard me say so often, the PhD is a genre of writing. Really take that to heart because this research shows that matters. What is the genre of writing? So writing and writing competence is based on what they describe as, quote, genre-specific communities, quote, genre-specific communities, end of quote. So understand the genre of a PhD and, yes, its audience. So what does it mean to learn to write like a microbiologist? Great question. It involves participation in labs, research projects, perhaps journal clubs. So work out what it means to write as an historian, write as a physicist. What does that writer development look like? Speak the words. Intervention 19, here it comes. Avoid generality markers. If you do nothing else in any of these interventions, if you go, yeah, none of these are of use to me, if you're going to do one, do this one. This is the direct intervention I want you to implement today. I want you to remove generality markers from your writing. So this is stuff like always, never, nation, people, everyone, no one, right? There's lots of them. And a proxy for a student developing their writing through a degree is that they are less likely to use generality markers. That is, what does that mean? They're using fewer generalizations, more rigor, more evidence, and less certainty. So basically this means when you say All people think this. No, they don't. You don't know that. You can't research that. Where's your evidence? So just get rid of the word. Madness, get rid of the word. The best academic writers are the most precise academic writers. As a proxy, start today by removing the generality markers from your prose. Boom. And intervention 20. Thanks for hanging with me. We did well. Remain a student of writing and keep learning about writing. None of us are excellent writers. We are all rubbish. We are all students of writing. Certainly, experienced writers have particular characteristics. We're able to do a few things, and that is we have strategies, we have patterns, we have behaviours to solve problems in writing. Most importantly, experienced writers have gained their experience through multimodality. Let me explain what that means. So it means the lessons that we learn on one platform and genre, we're then able to translate onto another platform or genre. So we write a blog, we write a piece of journalism, we understand the genre of writing, and then we think about what we have to do, the changes we have to make to render that an academic article or a chapter in a PhD. Now, this is powerful, this is important, and it's been studied. What recent research is showing, particularly in that GEAR longitudinal study, and this is devastating actually if you think about it, there is a gap, and it is a widening gap between what students say they're doing in their writing and what they're actually doing. Oh no. So in other words, students are talking about what they're doing in their writing, and yet they're not actually doing it. Wow. So this means, unfortunately, students think they're writing well, and because they don't know what they don't know about writing, they're not writing well. Okay? So therefore, students don't know what they don't know, and therefore have no capacity to reflect on what is going wrong in their writing. What the GEAR research has shown us is that offering strategies to work through multimodal environments, enacting multimodality, improves student writing, full stop. Therefore, let's make a decision every day to talk about academic writing, overtly, clearly. Talk about the genres of writing, talk about multimodality, talk about the audiences for our research. Now, probably the best guide through writing ever was from Stephen King and his book On Writing, a Memoir of a Craft. Again, important to use the word craft there. And he stated, if you want to be a writer, you must do two things above all others: read a lot and write a lot. End of quote. And next week, we're going to talk about the relationship between reading a lot and writing a lot. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.